I want to welcome Steve Besk to the show. Steve, welcome to We Are Soccer. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate for having me on.
No problem. All right, just so everybody's aware, Steve is one of the top referees in the state of Michigan. He refs high school, college, youth, you name it, he's done it. I've known Steve for a very long time. I've played against him, and he's also refed a lot of the games I've been in. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring on Steve to the show is to talk about the way that the youth teams and even the high school and college teams and parents are kind of bemoaning referees. I wanted to show that, one, referees are human. They don't have an agenda. They're not out to screw your team or your child, right? They're there to make sure that the rules of the game are enforced. Without referees, we don't have a game. So Steve, let's just jump in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into refereeing, if you will?
So, having played the game my whole life, in college, looking for a way to make some extra money and get through school, and then refereeing just became an opportunity as a way to stay involved in the game. Personally, I did a little bit of personal training and coaching, but coaching just wasn't my calling. Definitely wasn't for me, which I understand there's a place for someone to be involved. And my way of giving back into the game was through refereeing. Someone has to do it, and I thoroughly enjoy being on the field. Just getting to be around top level players, and from the vantage point of the middle of the field, there's really no better way to watch a game than being in the middle. And so that's kind of how I got involved, and just kept at it, working all sorts of leagues and games from there.
I mean, that's great. And again, it's great that you're still involved with the game and you can still do this. One of the things we were talking about earlier was, you watch a lot of soccer. You watch a lot of soccer for many reasons. One, because you enjoy soccer. It's a love and a hobby. But two, you also watch to get better, right? You watch you watch Premiership games, you watch the Champions League games and other top level leagues. You watch where the referee's at, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're always watching. I think referees are constantly doing self-evaluation or self-improvement by watching games at any level. It's something that we do as referees within group chats and emails and share clips just to constantly grow, because situations are always different. And it's not always to say, well, this guy got it wrong or right, but it's just to think about what happened in this situation, what you could consider, and hopefully that if the situation were to arise in your game, you would have at least some knowledge of how to handle situations.
So obviously at the pro level these days, we've got VAR, which that
Sure.
could be a whole discussion in itself, right? But the levels you're at, where the top level of where you're at now, college, right? College soccer, you've got guys who are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they are quick. They are really,
Sure.
really quick. You've as an AR got to keep up on the sideline, and in the middle you got to keep up, and you don't have that VAR. You don't have video to go back and look at, right?
We do a little bit. It's limited.
Okay.
So in some of the conferences that have adopted the VAR in the college game, the only thing you can review is whether the ball crossed the line.
Okay.
When there was a violent conduct, what actually happened, and then to make sure you didn't give a caution or a card to the wrong player. So you want to make sure. So it's limited. We don't have an offsides,
Right.
And we don't have, was that a penalty? Was it not? Was it in the box? Those things we can't. So it's limited, but there is a little bit of VAR.
Sure. I'll say it's limited on some of the more important. Did I give a card to the right guy? Did I?
Sure.
But even at the top level of high school, you have to make an instant decision, right? And if you want to think about this, the viewers, if you've played soccer, you're watching soccer, there's 22 guys on a field, players on a field, and then you add in a referee and then a linesman. There are players doing this, right? Running in between you and the referee and the ball, and anything can happen. So the referees have to have such good eyes. Their job is actually so tough, and they got to make a quick split decision. Is it a foul? Is it not a foul? What happened? And they got to make an assessment. That's got to be tough. How do you guys kind of prepare for that? How do you?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you have a communication with your crew, because it really is a team. As much as the person in the middle with the whistle is always looked at as the main referee. Without the two assistants and sometimes your fourth official, you won't ever be able to get through a game, because they're extremely vital. And I feel like sometimes we don't prioritize the ARs as much, or shine light on them as much, but it's equally as important. And the biggest thing is just getting locked into the game. As an AR, your number one focus is the offside line. And then additionally, it's calling fouls and things like that. Where in the middle, your head's on a swivel. We talk about at the highest level in some of our clinics that we have anywhere between 300, 400 decisions in a game to make. And you're really only pulling out the 20 or 30 that the game needs, or the game wants, or what the game needs there. So just because there's a tiny little pull or a slight little push, maybe that's one decision that you're not pulling out. And then there's others that you do. So it's constantly, just trying to find what the game needs, feel the flow of the game, and then trying to pull those decisions from those scenarios.
And something interesting you said there. I've played soccer for going on 30 years, and I've never really thought about that. There's, in a 90-minute soccer game, like you said, there could be 300 decisions that need to be made. That it's 100% correct. But you're right. Not all of them are going to be made. Not all of them have to be made. But what are the decisions that have to be made? What are the decisions that need to be made in order for the game to correctly be played and called, right? So that's something I've never thought of, and a great way to look at it. That I want everybody to kind of think about that for a second. There could be 300 calls in a game, really, if every little ticky tack thing's called, right?
And that's where we get to the point of like the spirit of the game too. And I think that's lost a lot, is that sometimes everyone, it's by the law, and it must be called because it is what happened. And sometimes there's a spirit of the game that gets lost, or in the good games you see that where there's a good game flow, it's because the referee understands the spirit of the game. And just because there is a slight push here or there, it doesn't mean everyone has to get called. And so you try to find a good game flow.
Right. That's a great point. I want to touch on something that I've seen a lot of on the internet now these days, is parents and younger players doing a lot of complaining about referees. And I see that it's driving a lot of referees out of the game. A U7 game still needs a referee. A U10 game still needs a referee. And you're not going to ref a game, Steve, you're not going to ref a game, a U7 game, right? You're above that. But you're going to take a young referee, a 12, 13-year-old referee, and you're going to give him the game. And I'm sorry, guys, if you think your 7-year-old gets a call that goes against him is going to ruin his professional career, you're dead wrong. Okay. Stop yelling at these poor young referees who are out there to earn some money and do a good job, and are still learning. And we got to remember that they're still learning, right?
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that people understand that, again, I'll say it, without a referee, we don't have a game, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and I think the young referees, the important thing is that these kids are out there trying to give back to the game, and they're trying, and it doesn't mean that there can't be passion from the parents. Right. But like to your point, is that there's no out of bounds call, no foul call, no offside call that's going to change the course of a career of any kid that's playing youth soccer anywhere in this country. Right. And that's just the truth of it, because if your kid is good enough to play at a high level, he's going to get noticed more than just one call out of one game. Yeah. And so more times than not, 99% of referees don't have an agenda against a call, against a team, against a player. We're just out trying to make the decision we saw, and try to make that best decision on the spot.
Absolutely. And you got to make that decision on the spot, right? And some of the best referees I've ever had in my career, they allow me to yell at them a little bit, because obviously, let's pretend I just made a 50-yard run and I stumbled, or I got tripped, or I got pushed, and I didn't get the call. And I get up and I yell at the referee and I say something. The good ones do allow for a little bit, and then they come up and they say, listen, I saw it a little bit differently. Here's what I saw, and maybe I got it wrong. And some of them I've become friends with, like yourself, and you say, listen, Craig, I didn't see it that way. Maybe I got it wrong. I apologize, but that's not, we're just going to go. And what am I supposed to say? As a player, I go, he just admitted he could have been wrong. All
Sure,
right.
I think showing compassion
Yeah.
between the players and the referee, or coach and referee, is the only way that this game grows, and grows in the proper way, as far as not having those verbal abuse, not having, from whether it be parents or players. And you have to show some compassion as a referee, from the player side, that the players are in the mindset of focusing on the individual play and the game and the score, and trying to compete. And the referees also somewhat doing the same thing, that they're just trying to watch what's going on. And you have to let that frustration sometimes vent out, in that if you don't let the player release a little bit of their frustration and energy, it's going to constantly be a battle between the two, and there's never going to be a mesh of getting a good game flow. And it doesn't mean you can allow all players to react and respond in erratic behavior, but there are times to show compassion, or to just be honest with the players. And when you can show honesty to players, they respect you more. They may not agree, with you, and they still may not like you, but if you show a bit of honesty, just to tell them what you did or didn't see, at least you can say, hey, we saw it differently, but we can agree to disagree. And you can appreciate it as a player, that that the referee at least was honest with you, and he's not just going to stick to his call and defend whatever it is that he called. We're human. We will make mistakes. Those things happen. We don't try to. We want to get every call right, but we know that's also not possible. And so the best is to show that honesty. And I think that's just what helps build the relationship between, the players and refs, or refs and coaches.
Two things you said there that I want to kind of hit upon. You used the word compassion. Show a little bit of compassion to the player, and that's, I think, the best referees I've had in my playing career. That they show a little bit of compassion of, hey, you know what? I'll allow you to yell, but don't swear at me. Don't do anything. You're frustrated. I get it. I saw it differently. Let's move on, right? But they build that relationship. Uh,
Sure.
I've got a relationship with a lot of referees. We want to talk before the game. They allow me to kind of do a little bit of venting in the game, as long as it's, I'm not
Sure.
using it or making them look bad. So that is a great thing. I want to say the best referees in the world do.
Sure.
It's great
And
to hear a referee actually say that.
you see it on the TV all the time in the programs. You see the small conversations,
Yep.
and sometimes the player actually does need to inform the referee, hey, watch this guy. He's grabbing me every time I'm getting around him, or this guy's, and because there's some things that go on that we do miss because we don't have an angle. And so sometimes the information from the player will help us
Right.
catch that next foul. And so being able to have those sometimes small conversations can either prevent future fouls, or correct, get the correct calls moving forward.
Sure. That's great. There was I don't know if you've seen, it was a couple of years ago. There was an Australian referee in the Australian A League, and he was doing his last game, and every single player after came up and shook his hand, and
Yeah.
it was so fun to see. And they were like, man, these guys really respect this referee. And that's one of the best things I've seen in a long time from a referee
Sure.
he was brought to tears that all the players came up and said that to him. And you could see that they genuinely respected him and loved him, because he was a guy who on the field kind of gave it called it as it was, and was compassionate. So those are the best referees, in my opinion. Yeah. So I want to touch upon something real quick. Obviously, you've done a lot of college games. You don't want to move any further up the level. Can you explain why, and what's that?
So for me, I think every referee needs to find their passion and their goals, and figure out what's best for them. For me, I personally enjoy being able to both do middles of games, to do lines, to do fourths officials, to be on college campuses in the fall. You really can't describe the feeling, the energy that you find on a college campus. Whether it's going up to Michigan State and you hear the band practicing on a Friday night for that Saturday football game in the background as you're doing a soccer game, to walking on the most random campuses and seeing just really cool layouts and fields. So for me, that's just where I found my passion. The spirit and the rivalries between the teams and the universities is something that you can't match. For me, the U.S. soccer side has been awesome. I've had some great experiences, and the MLS just isn't something that I just want to pursue. Just not something that I would want to put myself through to get to that point. Not that it's not a good goal for some people to have, but just maybe not for me. But you got to find what's best for you. And for me, it's finding a way to get back to the game, and hopefully maybe now helping younger referees in the area. And to me, that's just more important as my other passions in life. And you got to be able to find a balance, I think, is the most important thing.
I mean, that's great to hear. Not everybody wants to go to the MLS to ref or to play, right? There's other passions
Sure.
to do. Um, Let me ask you a personal question then on that referee on the line, the AR and the center. Do you prefer to do ARs? Do you prefer to be in the center? It depends on the league, depends on the level. What if you had your choice?
I think every game is different. I mean, there are definitely times that you're happier to be on the line than you are in the middle. And then there's times where, you wish you had the whistle because you'd rather have called the things yourself and dealt with and I think every game is different, but I think we approach everything as we're a team, and that we're all making calls together. A lot of times it's not just one person. And so I enjoy both. I mean, I would say that, when you're on the line, usually it's more physically demanding because you can get caught out of position like that.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable. An offside decision, not staying with the back line. I mean, it's where in the middle, you kind of get to pick and choose when you run. I mean, you'll be out of position if you're not running, but I think it's a little bit more demanding on the line at times on the higher level games. But they both present challenges. They both present good opportunities. I mean, you enjoy both, and when you get to do both, you kind of enjoy both sides of doing both.
Awesome. So in our earlier conversation, kind of leading up to this, you'd mentioned some clinics. So do you do clinics a couple times a year? Do you do online stuff? How do you keep up and keep yourself informed of everything and in training? How does that work?
So between the USSF clinics, which they've been doing a little bit more online modules and training, which is good. The US Soccer website is, the Michigan chapter doing a lot. The Michigan referee committee is doing a lot with setting up links and video clips and constantly trying to educate. So that's one. Our college group, we have a clinic in the fall, and then they're same thing. They have a website that we're always getting clips and stuff. And then through group chats with other referees, friends that I've made over the years, some that are in state, some that are out of state now. And we just constantly are always helping each other. It's one of the greatest resources I have is my other referees, because we get clips that we send to each other from our own games, from other people's games. And it's just a discussion. And it's never a, man, you did this wrong or you screwed up. It's more, what did you see? Why do you think it's that? And it's never a right or wrong. It's more just a discussion point. And so there's constant learning going on all the time. I think that's another thing is that I think a misconception is that referees just show up to the field and ref the game and go home and take their money and leave. And let's be honest, a lot of younger, newer referees, sure, I'm sure that's what a lot of them, but the referees that you see doing higher level games and doing those better games, most of them are constantly trying to improve themselves and educate themselves and get better. And that's the goal really of every high level referee I've ever worked with.
That's awesome to hear. You guys as referees are self-assessing yourself, and you're sending clips and you're talking and you're having those conversations. I mean, as a player, we do that as well, right? We
Right.
talk to each other and say, what were you doing here? What happened there? What did you see? And we do that when we were on watching TV together. So it's great to hear that you guys as referees do that from that angle. And the goal is, just like as a player, to get better and to do the next game as good as well as you can, right? That's the goal.
Absolutely. I think one thing I always do is I try to pick up one thing every game. Doesn't even matter if it's small or if it's a big issue. Always try to pick up one thing, whether it's about the game or maybe how someone else on my crew handled the situation or a comment they had. Because sometimes even a little conversation to a player that someone had, I may throw it in my back pocket and use it 2 years down the line or a month from now. And sometimes those little tools can help you throughout the game, just the same way as a player is always trying to pick stuff up. I always try to pick up one thing every game to add to my toolbox of referee tools to get through a game.
That's just right there, that comment. I mean, try to pick up something from every game so that you can use it and be better. Just shows that, I mean, you're not just there to pick up the money. This is a job and you want to be as good at it as possible. So
Right.
that's very cool to hear. Let me ask you a quick question. We'll kind of delve away from refereeing at the moment.
Sure.
Who's your favorite professional team? Who do you follow?
Well, I'm a huge Gunner. I'm an Arsenal fan through and through. It's been a rough season, but when you go through the success that the club has had, there's bound to be down times, kind of like, the Detroit Red Wings. I find the much similarity between the two. So
Sure.
it's been a rough run, but it comes with the territory. Arsenal through and through will never waver, and it's part of being a fan.
I like to hear that. Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough patch for you guys the last year or two.
It has.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's exciting. I mean, I feel like, when you obviously everybody wants their team to be the best and to be competing for titles year in year out, but that's just not the realities of football. I mean, especially with the way the money is being spent now in the top leagues. Even if you're spending top money, it's tough to compete week in, week out. And I think you would agree with me. I mean, the Prem's the top league in the world for a reason, because week in, week out, team 1 to team 20 can beat anybody.
Yep.
So it's tough. And when you're right now, for Arsenal's sake, when you're playing a lot of young players, you're going to have a lot of growing pains and mistakes. But it's what gets me up every weekend to watch games. And we got a big Europa League tie tomorrow.
Well, yes, you guys do. But I wish you guys luck.
Maybe you guys will find yourself in Europe next year. Who knows?
Yeah, I think possibly the year after is when we'll get there.
Hey.
You know what? I'm just happy that we're safe in the Premiership. Villa had a good year. I'm not going to complain. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And before we end, I just want to kind of reiterate that to the viewers, the referees, again, do not have a hidden agenda. They do have a human side. And some of the best referees will talk to you and will, for lack of a better term, I'll use the term you use, show a little bit of compassion on the field to the players and really kind of start to build that relationship. And those are the best referees, in my opinion. But viewers, I want to remind you, please stop abusing these referees, especially the young ones, right? We need them in the game. And if we drive all of them out of the game now, in 5 or 10 years, we're not going to have any referees, and we won't have a game without them. So please kind of take warning and understand that.
I appreciate it, Craig, and I think that's a great point. I think because the trickle down is so true, in that we have so many people that are playing the game, and there's so many more leagues now. I mean, we have so many more women's leagues now, like semi-professional and men's leagues now that are growing constantly, and it's awesome. But our referee numbers are going down. I mean, especially even in the last year with the pandemic, the amount of referees who recertified has been down, and they're always reaching out trying to gain new referees, even the last 5 years. And it's tough when you have younger kids out there who are taking some verbal abuse, and some of them can't respond as well to it. We drive some of them out of the game, and then we don't have as many refs. So, and it's not that you can't be compassionate and not care, but also understand that there's a line. And if that was your kid, would you want other parents screaming them? And it doesn't mean you can't disagree. It doesn't mean you can't ask them after the game what they saw, but you have to be able to find that line, and to find a line of being somewhat of a better spectator.
Right. I like that. I think we'll end on that, because I could go on all day about
Absolutely.
players going up and the referee. We could. So, but that's very well said. Well, Steve, again, I want to thank you for coming on We Are Soccer, and I'd like to possibly do a follow up in a couple of weeks, couple of months, and we'll chat. Maybe what we can do is we can bring on some clips of some decisions, and you can tell me what you think the referee was seeing, and we can kind of have, for lack of a better term, a discussion about
Love to. Awesome. That sounds great.
Awesome, buddy. Well, again, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you out on the fields, bud.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
All right, buddy. Take care.